And turns out we didn't even really need the recoiler. Yeah, I'm just shaking off the ooze, and we're ready to go. Golgotha is an easy dungeon if you know what you're doing. So I decided to leave the slime here just because I really don't need it for anything else. But if I plan to come back and water Ritual Slog at a later point, I know for a fact that I'm gonna forget that I need that. So I just leave it there because I know that I'll need it later. But yeah, there's Golgotha complete. And since we're below whatever it is, like level 18, we get the scoped masterwork carbine. So super nice. And I see that Otho is disliked by trolls, which is not gonna work for me. I really want troll rep so that I can water ritual them and then just walk past. The more trolls that I have to love injector, the more dangerous it gets. So I feel that it's worth the negative seeker rep at this point, just to get that troll rep. The Barathromites teach tinkering, which is really handy at this point because that makes our identification success rate go way up to have that skill. I mean, you just get it for free, essentially. It also lets you craft the recipes that you learn in any way. So if you have tinkering, you can do tinkering. Although you do need the tinkering skills in order to learn from data discs. But if you learn it from some other way, so like psychometry or with the Barathromites teaching you, then you can still make it regardless. Now it's around this point that I would really like disarm. If you have disarm post Golgotha, when you're ready to start going through the jungles and especially the ruins, disarm is so useful because you can just get obscene amounts of money by disarming all of like the laser turrets that spawn in the ruins. Disarm them, grab the laser pistols, grab the laser rifles. They're worth an unbelievable amount of money and Mechanimus rep, and they're everywhere. So super easy way to get money if you have the skill. It's one of the main reasons why I like long blades. It's because disarm is just, it's the best skill. The pistol disarm is okay, but it's only okay because it will disarm sometimes. The long blade disarm is just way better in every way. It's just way more reliable. Essentially, unless you have chain pistols, you're not disarming with the pistols unless you get lucky. And since it's an agility-based percentage anyways, my agility is trash, and it will always be trash. So yeah, I'm not going to be disarming anything anytime soon, which is unfortunate. But now I have the Masterwork Scoped Carbine, or the Sparbine, as it was made by Spar Officiel. So that allows me to use the cell that I was using for the Electrobow elsewhere. This rifle is a beast. It will carry you through so much of the game. It's so good. And best of all is that it's good without any rifle skills whatsoever. If you have rifle skills, it's even better because you can lock enemies in place. But without, it's still just a really good killing machine. With this, I'm pretty self-sufficient now. I'm not relying on my follower as much as I was before. Because lead slugs are so easy to get You just buy a crap load from Mafio and you're set to go. You kill chain gun turrets and you get a ton of slugs. Yeah, bullets are easy to come by, whereas cells are heavy and harder to find renewable ones, especially if you can't tinker. So, if you remember, I got this quest a while ago to find Oshid Hedge, which is next to this Snapjaw Fort. So I decided to do that at this point. I'm not quite ready to make a visit to Bethesda Susa. At the very least, I would like more love injectors, because the amount... I did find a few at Gritgate, but the amount that I found is a lot less than I would have wanted. So one thing that's dangerous about going back to these low-level areas and fighting the enemies that used to give you problems is that it starts to make you feel strong. And in this challenge, feeling strong is the fastest way to die, because the difference between the enemies that are at my level right now and these enemies is huge. It's absolutely massive. So being overconfident like this is super, super dangerous. So time to turn in that quest. Once again, could just hit backspace, but the things that you learn through trial and error. I did forget to get any oil, unfortunately. But we've got some good options here. We've got the hover sled and the symbiotic firefly. I can't even remember what the last one is because it was so irrelevant compared to those two. But the hover sled is really nice because it gives us more carrying capacity. Well, it lightens our load. It technically gives us more carrying capacity. It's in a similar vein as the sphere of negative weight. It weighs like -50 when you equip it in the floating nearby slot. But it doesn't give any light, and that's kind of an issue at this point in the game because I really am tired of holding a glow sphere in one hand. I want a better weapon. I want a two-handed weapon because it has that extra penetration value, does more damage. It's just a lot more useful. So we find a second Schrödinger page. This is very uncommon, very surprising. These things are super, super rare. Now the first one I did find on a Dromad trader, which is even rarer than finding them on the bookbinder. But I definitely want this. I seriously want this. Because normally the way to get multiple Schrödinger pages is to polygel them. But just being able to buy it like this is very, very handy. So I use this time to get rid of some excess weight that I'm still lugging around. I've got tons of money still on my follower, so I'm not short anything. It's just a matter of deciding what I want to give up. So you can see I've got almost enough money to just buy it outright. But that wouldn't be a good use of my weight. So I decide to get rid of the items first. So with that bought, it's just a matter of checking the rest of the merchants for whatever they have and using that Schrödinger page to get some rep. We talked about the hover sled, not really the symbiotic firefly. So the firefly both gives light and insect rep. And early on, insect rep isn't that crazy, but in the later game, insect rep is very, very important. because of 2 enemies, exactly. So the first enemy is the mirror bugs. While they don't tend to kill you, I don't think I've ever died to a mirror bug. They put you in a situation where you can't really fight very, very cleanly because of their perfect damage reflection. So they're very dangerous to fight, and especially when you have as few options as we do in this challenge in terms of like mutations that you get. I don't have any very reliable mutations, at least not yet, and there's no guarantee that I will get some either. So something like phasing would be really nice, or if I could get wings for the better movement speed while sprinting, things like that to close the distance between ourselves and the mirror. But we don't reliably get anything like that. So instead, if you just have neutral insect rep, they leave you alone, which is so nice. The other enemy that we want to make sure that we have on our nice list, so we get the neutral insect rep, is the gamma moth. So the gamma moth can mutate you, and it tends to give a random defect rather than a positive mutation. So definitely don't want to roll those chances and get some debilitating defect when we're already extremely weak. If that happens and we get something like really bad, like the spontaneous combustion one, that could just kill us right there. Or like evil twin, those are not fun. So we definitely want to avoid that as much as we can. So get that neutral insect rep. So now I'm checking what faction would be the most impactful for me to use the Schrodinger page on. Because of my symbiotic firefly, my insect rep is really good, but that is conditional. Oozes is another really important one, and ooze rep is actually good throughout essentially the entire game. Same thing with Seeker of the Sightless Way. Those are also very, very useful throughout the entire game. I actually don't like robot rep too early, because that leaves a lot of the like turret tinkers as neutral to you, which can backfire if you're not attacking them constantly. You can easily take some friendly fire from them if you're not careful. Although unshelled reptiles is one thing that I've essentially forgotten and ignored this entire time. But unshelled reptiles are not super useful they're not super dangerous. Like a lot of them aren't very dangerous, except for a few. And it's those few that we're going to use a Schrodinger page for, because the Rhymewick is the primary enemy that I've got on my mind right now as the dangerous enemy that I do not want to meet with negative unshelled reptile rep. Absolutely not. That thing is so dangerous. So I actually just hop in a random desert canyon tile here, and I'm just looking for crocosyns to give myself that extra little bump in unshelled reptile rep for me to be neutral with them. I unfortunately had forgotten that there's actually scaled equipment at the stilt from the killed merchants. So this is entirely pointless. If you were paying attention back there, you would have seen some of that equipment. I could have just grabbed that, but I entirely forgot about it, so I spend way too long searching for stuff I don't actually need. So even at 10x speed, this takes a while. So if you don't want to sit through that, just go ahead and go to this timestamp, and you'll be at where stuff happens again. I'm just leaving this in here so I can say, hey, I didn't cut anything out. You can see that, not cheating or anything. So finally, we make it back to the stilt. Still looking for that unshelled reptile reputation item. I'm really hoping to find it here because my search through the canyons was unfruitful. Just could not find anything at all. While I'm at it, might as well check for more Schrodinger pages and stuff like that. Main focus here is scaled items or some crocuses. I see the crystal longsword, and I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking about it, but I decide not to, just because there is a strength cap on the item, so I wouldn't be strong enough to actually make use of the benefit that I would be getting from that. So decide against it. So I save, take a little break, and we come back to potentially go to Bethesda Susa and further. So still looking for some sort of unshelled reptile reputation item, carcassins or scaled gear. I've not successfully found anything so far, so coming up a bit empty right now. I mistake this Mechanimist pilgrim for a hatter. I don't know why I checked this guy. I'm just checking everyone with that sprite, it seems. But it seems like the hatter died, so I was checking around for any items that could have been his, although I didn't check the hat that was on the ground. That was probably where he died, thinking about it. But we checked the other vendors for what they got, and we're finding a whole lot of nothing, which is unfortunate because we really need that item to reliably go through Bethesda Susa. The other part of the equation of Bethesda Susa is that you want to be favored by the Mechanimists. The reason for that is that it lets you just walk through the bottom floor unhassled. It's actually quite important to be favored by the Mechanimists. The enemies in there aren't super deadly for a normal character, but just the quantity of them is pretty overwhelming and pretty dangerous. And since even one of them would be scary for this character, we definitely want to have that reputation before actually going down to the bottom floor. I decide to go searching in the jungle for some items, hoping to find some loot. The goat folk do have some pretty useful stuff on them. Looking for things to drop down the well, as well as just general weapon improvements. Now, this is really dangerous to do, just because the goat folk sowers especially are very, very deadly. But I don't have a whole lot of other options to do at this point. I do have the scaled cloth robe now, so I'm able to successfully ward off the unshelled reptiles with that. So as long as I keep a clear path behind me, the goat folk are not that dangerous. They are still really, really dangerous, but a lot of their danger can be quelled through a screen transition. And then the carbine is just an incredible weapon. Super, super handy to have that. Now, as I mentioned before, I do not want to piss off the Naphtali more than I already have. And so I backed out of that layer. Definitely don't want to mess around with that. Once again, playing too fast is dangerous. These riflers do a lot of damage when you're so weak. Normally not that deadly, but you got a shot off as soon as I stepped in range. And then, you know, me playing too quick means that I took another step and that dropped me pretty low. So do have to be careful. That's why I hit auto explore a lot of the times, because it will stop me immediately when something is found. The only downside of auto explore is sometimes it doesn't take you along the path that you would like to take. I find another thermal cask here, as well as a missile launcher. So these things together are worth a ton of Mechanimus rep. So that's essentially everything that I need right there in terms of reputation. So I'm pretty set. I just need to mess with the inventory in order to carry it all back. Here we are, back to base. Of course, not without getting lost a couple times before. The wayfaring skill is underrated as to the impact that it makes on the game. And the fact that I still cannot afford it yet is pretty frustrating. So going through the hills here was not my greatest idea. As you saw, there was a seeker there, and it did aggro on my follower, which is, yeah, not good. Very, very dangerous. Could have easily been me, and could have easily been dead. However, luckily now that he aggroed, once I'm at the zone transition, I can just transition out and back, and we're good to go. And through a stroke of sheer luck, I get lost and find a village for the third time. These villages are typically a lot harder to find, but I keep getting lost right on top of them. So, pretty lucky for that. So checking his rep, he's not angry with anyone, or nobody's angry with him. Swift blocking, pretty good skill. We do get the shield skill for free, well, for rep from Warden's Esler. But swift blocking, pretty useful if you have multiple shields. That's probably not our case. So not something I'm killing myself over to try and get. I'm just trying to look for where this quest got added. It was a Dromad caravan. Just something that I wanted to check out. I'm not meaning to shoot my partner here, but he's just automatically targeted, so he's the one that is getting shot. That's what happens when you play a little too quick. But nothing here is really that dangerous, so I'm not too worried about it. Unfortunately, the Dromad trader does not have anything good, so we're just moving right along. Just hoping to get lucky and maybe it has some good gear above its tier. It's rare, but there is a chance that they can have something pretty decent. Now, I'm a little hesitant to drop the second thermal cask in there because I would like to deck out our follower in that as well. But if I'm not going to water ritual the high priest here, it seems like I'm going to have to do that. So I throw it down as well. But now I'm favored. I have the Mechanimus rep. I have the pretty good cold resistance. I have love injectors. And I have the unshelled reptile reputation to be neutral with them, at least with the scaled item. So I've really got everything that I could want for Bethesda Susa. It's just a matter of doing it. Now, doing it at this level is a little low. We see another useless Schrodinger page. It is uncommon to find so many of these. Especially so many with the chapter unspecified, like I have. I found 2 so far. That's really uncommon. But these, I'll call them miscellaneous chapters. The succulents, the highly entropic beings, they're just pretty useless reputation. But we got everything that we want for Bethesda Susa. Doing it at this level is pretty dangerous. I would like a few more useful mutations, although Force Wall is a pretty good one. But the more that I have, the more useful. I just don't have a very good way of dealing with a Kragmensch. And that's my main concern right now. I would have liked like a electric weapon. Like a good electric weapon to put on our follower here so that she could damage them a little more effectively, or like a flaming weapon. But I don't really have anything good. So I'm a little hesitant to jump right in, but I don't have a whole lot of other places to go to look except for Gritgate. At this point in the runs, I wasn't making good use of the 20 strata underneath Gritgate. We can get some pretty good items. Now, a lot of times they are locked behind the locked doors, but I mean, if you've got a jackhammer or a pickaxe, you don't care about walls anyways, so. But I remember my books, so I need to turn in the books for some experience. Ideally here, I would go back to Gritgate and try and find some better weapons or some better gear before taking on Bethesda Susa. But this came at a time when I didn't have the strategies that I do now as on lock. And it would also have been really nice to get one more level up so that I could have my next mutation. Normally I would have by now, but I did use one mutation point to level up triple jointed, which I'm really feeling the pain on now. But make these mistakes so that you learn next time. And once again, I'm still just not having any good skills whatsoever. Meditate's pretty good for me. It's just not as useful because your follower doesn't get it, and your follower is doing most of the fighting anyways. So when you're healing, I mean, most of the time it's your follower that needs healing. So you want to make sure that they can heal just as fast as you, otherwise you're having to wait around extra for your follower to get healed. It can be kind of inconvenient. So at this point, I realize that I don't have Stopsvallen, and I would really like Stopsvallen. Now the Barathamites are ones that will actually give me the location of Stopsvallen. But unfortunately, Q-Girl did not give me that location. So that means that I would have to incur the wrath of the trolls in order to get more rep to find Stopsvallen. So I decide not to do that. I have Force Wall after all. Stopsvallen is just a really nice it's just a really nice way for anyone to get like a barrier between you and the trolls. They all have charge, so when you're this weak, you want every advantage that you can. And Jotun in particular is really scary, especially with those thrown axes. You can do just an absurd amount of damage, just an unbelievable amount of damage, with that super high strength that he has as well. It's getting a little dicey here, but I mean, running backwards, a sprint skill is honestly one of the best survival tools that you have. So I don't even need to use any items here. I can just sprint backwards and rest. That's all I need to do. Especially because I have a follower that will pick up the aggro for me after I run away. We're off to Bethesda Susa. I'm feeling like I can take it on. I would have liked a few more love injectors because they can miss with this dart gun. And not only can they miss, they can potentially not work if you're a lower level than the enemy that you're trying to inject, which we are currently. We are lower level than all the trolls. Now, being attacked by something, and since it casts Confuse, tells me that it was a Seeker of the Sightless Way. Luckily it didn't come after me. Confuse is, at the start, it seems very like one of the most dangerous debuffs in the game, but it just scrambles your visual. It doesn't scramble your inputs or what actually happens or anything. So if you can just remember where everything was, then it's not that dangerous. You can just run away. I'm gathering up a lot of these high AV items, specifically for Jotun. He is super dangerous. You can do easily in like the 70s of damage if you don't have really good AV. Now, hopefully I can just put him behind the force wall and just shoot over the force wall with a dart gun and not have to get in melee with him whatsoever. That would be the ideal, but you know, just in case, you definitely want to have that armor value so you don't get destroyed. And so you see a seed sower. I'm seeing the kindle-thumbed goat folk. There's just a lot of bad stuff here. It's not worth spending any more time there. You gotta get out of that. So using the trees to block line of sight here. Really strong. Really strong skill to have. It'll drastically change the outcome of your fights. So if they can't see you, they won't shoot at you. But you can still target that area. So even if they can't see you, you can still shoot at them. Which is a nice change of pace from turrets and stuff shooting you from outside your visual range. Finally, no longer lost, so we can finally make it to Bethesda Susa. So go ahead and put on our skull cloth robe. Now, this is a little sketchy because our AV is super low right now, but we are immediately rewarded as there is a rhyme wick right on top of the entrance. So these Kragmensch right now are scary because they can do quite a lot of damage to me because I do not feel safe taking off this this scaled item yet. And if they throw their boulder at me, that stuff basically ignores DV. So they just missed. That's the only reason they didn't hit me, is they missed their throw. It had nothing to do with me dodging or anything. Now, luckily the Rhymewick is on my side, but after seeing how long it took for my follower to kill that Kragmensch, I'm a little nervous because, the Rhymewick helping, that thing will destroy it super fast because it does cold damage. But my follower is not helpful, and here we go. First death, the close of the first good run that I had. Kragmensch Boulderer just threw a big old rock in my face. Not a whole lot I could have done about that. I couldn't really put on better armor because if I had done that, then I would have aggroed the Rhymewick and died. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of play that I could have done other than maybe not aggroing so many Kragmensch, maybe, trickling them in a little slower to fight them up top. But there's the run. So this is one of many. There will be more in the future, so stay tuned. See you next time.